Hello, and welcome to episode 2 of the Liberty is Essential podcast. My name's Donald Rainwater, and for about the next hour, we're going to discuss the issues and concerns of citizens of the state of Indiana from a libertarian perspective. And so let's just jump right in and start talking about some of the things that have been going on down at the State House over the past few days. There are some very important things that I think we need to take a look at and discuss. And I think some of these things will frame what we're doing moving forward in order to, here again, fulfill our mission at Liberty is Essential PAC by promoting individual rights and a return to constitutionally limited government here in the state of Indiana. So the first thing I'm going to do is talk a little bit about the House Bill 1123. House Bill 1123 was on the floor of the House today, being voted on, and its purpose was supposed to be to rein in the governor's emergency powers. And we're going to take a look real quick here, and I'm just going to pull this up to take a look at it on my computer, and I'm going to read you the digest from this bill. If I can get that back here, I apologize. Here we go. States of emergency provides that a special session of the General Assembly may convene at any time during the 30 days after which the governor issues a proclamation that calls for a special session of the General Assembly. Provides that a special session may meet for not more than 40 calendar days following the day upon which the session is convened. Provides that the General Assembly may convene in an emergency session if the Legislative Council adopts a resolution finding that the governor has declared a state of emergency that affects all of Indiana, and it is necessary for the General Assembly to address with legislative action the state of emergency declared by the governor. Folks, all this bill did was indicate that the General Assembly can call a special session if the governor declares an emergency. In no way, shape, or form did this bill reduce the governor's overreaching powers during an emergency. Now, it does say that in the event that he calls an emergency declaration, that they can call themselves into session. But it doesn't restrict what he does. And there were some amendments that were offered today by State Representative Kurt Nisley. I'm going to give you kind of an overview. The first amendment that he submitted would have changed the type of resolution that could be used to stop the emergency declaration, and it was voted down. The second one defines an executive order issued by the governor as to what it can and can't do. You see, executive orders were designed to allow the governor to issue directives to state agencies as to how they were to execute the laws that were passed by the General Assembly. This is one of the big concerns and issues that liberty-minded people have with the current law and the way that Governor Holcomb has implemented it. Because there was never any intent in an executive order for it to be something that could be issued telling businesses when they can be open or even if they can be open. There was never any intention that executive orders could be used to tell churches that they could not have in-person services on Easter Sunday. The executive order was never designed to express which businesses the government thought were essential and which were not. These were not things that executive orders were designed to do. And so Representative Nisley very wisely submitted an amendment to curtail the governor's misuse of executive orders. And of course, it was voted down. The third amendment that Representative Nisley submitted would have stipulated that the governor's emergency declaration is only designed to create the environment whereby the governor can apply for and receive federal funds during an emergency. It would have basically limited all of the other special powers that the governor currently has been granted. And of course, that was also voted down. So I tell you that because I want to talk about this. I want to talk about the idea that your state representatives, the ones, not all of them, there's a list here of representatives who voted for these amendments, who genuinely want the governor's constitutional authority limited the way that it's intended to be limited. Those representatives, Representative Nisley, Representative Jacob, Representative Borders, Representative Payne, Representative Hostetler, Representative Lucas, and Representative Prescott. These representatives all voted for one or more of these amendments. The rest of them voted against them. Why? Because they don't represent you. That's why. See, these state representatives, the vast majority of the 100 state representatives, don't represent the people in their district. They represent what they're told to do by their party leadership. And that's a problem, folks. That's a huge problem. Because it's not the House of Republican representatives. It's not the House of Democrat representatives. It's the House of Representatives of we the people. That's what it's supposed to be. You see, these folks shouldn't have to check with Speaker of the House Houston or the leader of the Senate, Senator Bray, I believe is the leader of the Senate at this time. You see, They shouldn't have to check with them and go, how am I supposed to vote? What do you want me to vote? But that seems to be what happens. You see, when the bills started being introduced to limit the governor's current powers during an emergency, the governor very publicly said that he didn't think that his current powers were excessive, and that any conversation about limiting his powers would have to be held to include him. Now, I find that to be disconcerting. I find it to be bordering on questionably ethical. Should a public official whose current powers are being debated in the legislature openly and publicly try to influence that debate? Now, it may be perfectly legal, but is it right? Is it acceptable? Is it something that we believe we should allow to continue in the state of Indiana? I'll let you think on that one. I have my opinion, and you probably already know what it is. I believe in the three equal but separate branches of government: the legislative, the executive, and the judicial. And that I believe when the legislature is in session and they are debating and discussing legislation that directly affects the governor and how he does his job, the governor should stay out of it. Because the governor doesn't make the laws. The governor is not the boss. I got news for you. The people are supposed to be the boss. It's not the way it happens, but that's the way it's supposed to be. So I encourage you, take a look at House Bill 1123. Go out to iga.in.gov and take a look at this. Because what you'll find, in my opinion, is that the members of the House of Representatives are all talk and no do, except for a few. Here again, I applaud the efforts of Representatives Nisley, Jacob, Borders, Payne, Hostetler, Lucas, and Prescott in their votes to limit the governor's authority. But the rest of them, they just go along to get along. They're doing what leadership tells them. Not you, the leadership, we the people. No. Their political party leadership. And that brings me to the next subject that I want to talk about today, which is who is running our government. It's supposed to be us. It's supposed to be we the people. To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. But you see, the consent of the governed isn't supposed to be, we consent to let you go down there and do whatever the leadership of your political party tells you. That's an oligarchy, folks. And the Republican supermajority in the Indiana General Assembly, in the governor's office, is an oligarchy. It's government by a small group of wealthy people telling the rest of us how we have to live our lives and how much money we're going to cough up so they can continue to do the stuff they're doing. And that's a problem. And as many of us have gone out and decided we've had enough. We've had enough of the political establishment. We've had enough of the status quo. Not everybody has decided that enough's enough. And a lot of these folks still believe that their old party can be reined in, can be fixed. And I know that there are a lot of folks out there who believe that the values of one political party are better than the values of another political party, and therefore they need to vote for the political party that they agree with in their values. But I would strongly encourage you to stop for a minute and think, what is the true measure of a person? What they say or what they do? What really defines the platform of a political organization? What they say, what they put on paper, on a website, in a flyer, or what they actually do when they're governing. Because I would tell you that if you look back over the last 4 to 8 years, you will see a track record of governing in the state of Indiana that does not match the principles of protecting individual rights and promoting limited government. Just in the last 4 years, the current governor has continually expanded the footprint of the executive branch of state government. That is not consistent with what they say. There are programs being implemented today in Indiana that strictly look as if Bernie Sanders thought them up. That's a problem. We have over 1 million Hoosiers who filed for unemployment in 2020. And our government in 2021 wants to raise your taxes, even though the governor said during the State of the State address that the $2 billion surplus is intact. They have a $2 billion slush fund of your money, but they're still going to raise taxes. Why? Because that's what big government liberals do. And folks, if you don't think that the supermajority in the Indiana General Assembly and the governor's office aren't liberal, aren't progressive, please, please look at what they're doing. Look at what they're proposing. Because what they say and what they do just ain't the same thing. That's all there is to it. And we have to, as citizens, at some point decide, what kind of Indiana do we want to live in? Do we want to live in an Indiana where the gasoline excise tax goes up every year a penny just because? No vote, just because. Do we want to live in an Indiana where whenever you disagree with the governor, your position is converted from an elected position to an appointed position by the governor? Think about this for a minute. They converted the superintendent of public instruction from an elected position to an appointed position. They're now talking about taking away the authority of the Indianapolis City Council and having the governor appoint a board to manage and run the police department in Indianapolis. Now, I will be the first one to tell you the stuff that's going on in Indianapolis is horrendous. It's awful. It's unacceptable. The murder rate is out of control. The way that the riots were handled earlier this year or earlier in 2020, out of control. Unacceptable. But you don't fix a problem by creating a problem. You don't fix government by giving the responsibility to bigger government. The way this should be fixed and what we should be talking about are statutes to implement recall of officials who neglect to do their job, whether that be the mayor, members of a city council, or the governor of the state of Indiana. They should all be able to be recalled. Why don't we have recall in Indiana? Because we also have very lax ethics laws in Indiana. And if elected officials can get away with just about anything, why would they want you to be able to recall them? But that's what we need. We need recall statute so that we can say enough's enough, and so that the people of the city of Indianapolis can recall their mayor if he's not doing his job. They can recall members of the city council if they're not doing their job. Now, the reality is if they don't want to recall them, that's on them. And when people say, but Indianapolis, we need to save Indianapolis, what we need to do is give people a reason to vote for better than what they're voting for now. because that's the way this system is supposed to work, folks. You see, you vote, and your vote matters. I've received emails lately from people telling me they're never going to vote again because they feel like their vote didn't matter. Like they believe that their vote was changed or not counted. And that because of that, there's no reason to vote anymore. And all I can tell you is this: if you stop voting, they win. If you stop caring, they win. They've got us. We've lost our freedom. It's gone. But I believe that the founders of this nation believed in liberty, and they were willing to give their lives for it. They gave all that they had. Many of them lost all their fortunes, their lives, their families, so that we could have a free society. Now, unfortunately, in the world we live in today, we don't have that yearning to be free. What we seem to have in our society is a desire to have somebody take care of us, a desire to have government health insurance, a universal basic income, Social Security, all these things that somebody needs to take care of me. And folks, that wasn't the concept that this nation was founded upon. Somewhere along the line, over 240 years, they have systematically, quietly, and efficiently picked away at our freedom a little at a time. That brings me to the next thing that I want to talk about. During the time that I ran for governor in 2020, I had a lot of people make comments to me basically saying, I want to vote for you, but because you don't go far enough on this particular topic, this issue, you don't go far enough for me. Or you support that issue, I don't support that issue, but I agree with you on everything else, but I can't vote for you because of this one thing over here. Folks, I'm going to tell you something. I am a pragmatic libertarian, or a practical libertarian. There are many, many people, Libertarian, Republican, Democrat, they believe that if you don't stand all the way to the extreme that they believe in on a particular issue, that they can't vote for you because you're not where they need you to be. So they vote for people who say they're with them, but then here again, they govern differently. We have had our liberties, our freedoms systematically taken from us over the last 240 years by people who are willing to whittle away. Do a little. Get a little bit here, get a little bit there. And the unfortunate truth is that we've allowed it to happen because we're so fixated on this one thing over here that everything they're doing over here, we don't even look at it. And the next thing you know, not only does this not happen, but all this stuff over here happened, and we don't even realize it. They raise our taxes in ways we're not paying attention to. Oh, the cigarette tax, I don't smoke. I've never smoked. I think smoking is horrible. I don't care if they raise it. They should raise it. Really? What about something you do care about? Because if they can do it to cigarettes or to vaping products, they can do it to something that's important to you. You see, they're doing something a little at a time. They're picking their spots. But eventually they'll get around to you. And that's frightening. Because when they get around to you, who's going to stand up for you when you don't stand up for everybody else? You see, I believe that the only way that I can protect my individual rights is to protect your individual rights. I may not agree with you, but I'm going to protect your individual rights. You see, I believe that freedom of religion applies to everybody, not just the people who believe the same thing that I believe, but everybody. I may not like what you believe. I may not agree with what you believe, but I will defend your right to believe as you do, because that's how I protect my rights to believe as I do. And so, again, I say I am a pragmatic libertarian or a practical libertarian. And what that means to me is I am looking for every opportunity to promote individual freedom, to reinstitute limited government. And every little opportunity that I have, I'll take it. See, I don't have to have it all. You may remember the song by Queen. I want it all. I want it all. I want it all. I want it now. That's human nature. We all want that. We all want government to do what we believe government should do, and we want them to do it right now. But it doesn't work that way. You see, they didn't take away our freedoms all at one time. They did it a little at a time. And if we're going to get our freedoms back, we need to do it a little at a time. We need to be willing to take the little win, not hold out for the big win. I can't tell you how many times I've had people tell me, I like 90% of what that candidate stands for, but I can't vote for them because of that. But the alternative is somebody that they disagree with on 80% of what that person is doing, but because that person says the right thing 20% of the time, they'll vote for them. Think about it, folks. We've got to be willing to work together collaboratively for little wins for liberty. We've got to get our individual rights back as we can. Because if we hold out until it's all or nothing, it's going to be nothing. And that scares me. That concerns me. Because we have too many people who are all or nothing. I want it all, and I want it now. And that's just not working for us. It really isn't. Look at where we're at. Look how we got here. Look where we want to go. I believe that if I'm more free tomorrow than I was yesterday, that today was a success. And I would ask you, I'd encourage you to consider that, to think about the pragmatic approach to changing government, to getting our freedoms back. And the pragmatic approach is playing the game the way they're playing it to take our freedoms away. You see, you can't win a chess game on the first move. But I've heard people say, yeah, but you can lose it on the first move, and they're absolutely right. You can lose a chess game on the first move. But you've got to move several times. And you know what else you have to do? You have to watch your opponent's moves as well. And that's something we don't often do. In the government political realm, we believe that we're right and that that's all that matters and that everything is going to go the way we want it to because we're right. And they're wrong. So we don't even look at the moves they make on the chessboard. We just assume that our moves are the right ones and that they have to respond to us. And the next thing you know, we've been checkmated. And those are the things we have to avoid. We have to start looking at how we approach change in our society and in our government. We need to look at how we're going to change education in the state of Indiana and give everybody more choices, not just a select few who meet a means test or certain criteria, but everybody. Everyone should have equal opportunity to choose the education that their children receive. No one should be limited by government restriction on education. No one should be limited by government restriction on what type of career they can pursue. Everyone should have an opportunity to decide for themselves what career path they're going to pursue. And government should not be manipulating or interfering with those choices. And these are things that we have to acknowledge. And we have to start working on little wins, little victories. We can't get it all at once. It's not going to happen. And when we swing for the fence every time we're at bat and we strike out, it makes it harder and harder to win, because you cannot score runs if all you do is strike out, because you're going for the fence. I would encourage everybody who listens to this podcast to think about, how can I get involved in some little wins? What can I do? Can I call or email my state representative and my state senator and say, hey, please vote against this, or please vote for this? And that's valuable. But I'm going to tell you that there's something else you can do. And that is evaluate that state representative and that state senator and figure out, go look at all their votes. Are they voting the way I want them to vote? Or are they voting the way somebody else is telling them how to vote? And if they're not voting the way I want them to vote, I need to find a candidate who will vote the way I want them to vote. And I need to get behind that candidate and knock on doors for that candidate. I need to donate money, if I've got it, to that candidate. I need to vote for that candidate, regardless of party, regardless of, there's this one thing that I don't agree with. I agree with them on 99 other things. But this is the, look at the voting record of the people you've been voting for and tell me, are they voting the way you want them to on that one issue? Are they introducing legislation that meets your criteria on that one issue? And so if nobody is representing you on that one issue, find the candidate who represents you on the majority of the issues that are really important to you, and get behind that candidate, because that's how we make change. See, I'm going to promote a new slogan for the rest of 2021 and 2022. And that new slogan is, be the change. Don't ask for change. Don't expect change. Be the change. Don't expect your state representative or your state senator or your governor or your mayor or your city councilors or your county commissioners to change. I got news for you. They're not going to change. Not for you. But you can change. You can change how you look at politics in Indiana. You can change how you see what your elected officials are doing and what they've done. And you can change how you vote. You can change who you support. You can change how you talk to your friends and your family about the issues that are important to you. Don't expect change. Be the change. Because the reality is, there's a long, hard road ahead. We have to decide, Are we going to go down that road because that's the road they're taking us down? Or are we going to say enough? I'm not going down that road. I'm turning around and I'm going back that way. I'm going back to the freedom of religion, the free speech, the peaceable assembly, and the right to air my grievances to my government. I'm going to stand up for the phrase that the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. I'm going to make sure that I am secure in my person, in my home, in my car, from warrantless search and seizure. I'm going to tell my government that I reserve the right to decide what's best for me and my family and my business and my place of worship, and that government's job is to secure my rights and not much else. Be the change. Don't give up. Stand up. We can peaceably return Indiana government to its constitutionally defined state. But it's going to take time. And we're going to have to be practical. We're going to have to do one step at a time. See, again, you don't win the Indianapolis 500 on the first corner of the first lap, but you can lose it there. And it's important that we work together, that we come together as citizens of the state of Indiana, as Hoosiers, and we say, we've had enough. We're not going to take it anymore. It's time that we stood together and found the common ground of the issues where we know that we can all work together to be a little more free tomorrow than we were yesterday. And we know how to look at those state representatives and those state senators and determine which ones are voting to represent us and which ones are voting to represent their party leadership, corporate donors, special interest groups, and ignoring us. Have you ever talked to a state representative or a state senator about an issue that was important to you, and you heard them say the phrase, well, that's just not on my radar? That's an elected official who needs to not get reelected. Because if you are a citizen in their district and you have a concern, it should be on their radar. Now, they may be able to sit down and talk to you about why they would vote a certain way, and they might ask you to explain why you would like them to vote differently. But when an elected representative looks at you and says, well, that's just not on my radar, What they're really telling you is, I don't have time for you. I don't answer to you. I answer to somebody else. And folks, that's what's wrong with our government today in Indiana. None of them answer to us anymore. And until we make it clear that we are going to work hard, work smart, and do the things that need to be done to overcome the unfair advantage that they have legislatively created for themselves. Until we do that, we're going to keep getting what we're getting. So that brings me to the last thing I want to talk about today. Liberty is Essential PAC has been founded to do that work. We believe in individual rights and constitutionally limited government. And we're just not talking about it. We want to do it. We want to get it done. We want to support our state representatives and our state senators who are working to do the right thing, who are supporting the concepts and the constructs defined in the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution of the United States of America, and the Constitution of the state of Indiana. But we can't do it alone. We can't do it without your help. And so this is the time when I first want to tell you that if you would like to volunteer to make phone calls, send emails, shoot me an email, Donald@libertyisessential.com. And I'll get you in contact with somebody who will set you up to do what needs to be done to contact some legislators and let them know what your position is on certain legislation. We can work together to be the change. And now I'm going to ask you for money because we need your financial support. We can't do this for free. It takes time, it takes money to fight against the huge special interest groups that are pumping millions of dollars into the state of Indiana campaign funds of legislators who are spending tons of money on advertising, on radio and television to engineer public opinion the way that they want the public to think. And the only way that we will be able to overcome all of that money is to raise enough money to do the same thing they're doing, to get advertising on radio and television, to have people down at the State House talking to legislators, trying to encourage them to vote the right way, to vote for constitutional principles, to vote for better government, not bigger government. So I'm going to ask you, if you would, to consider a donation to Liberty is Essential PAC. If you go to libertyisessential.com and click on the donate button, you can donate online, or you can, I believe, maybe I didn't. So if you would like to send a check, please send me an email, donald@libertyisessential.com, and I will email you back with the address where you can mail a check. Now, we appreciate every donation. $5, $10, $25, $50. But folks, we are up against special interest groups that spend hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. And I know that most of you, just like me, don't have that kind of money. But if you know somebody who does and who gives, please tell them about Liberty is Essential PAC. We need your help. And we need to work together on these little victories, these little wins for liberty, to make sure that moving forward, there is a voice in Indiana that represents you and individual rights and a return to limited government. My name's Donald Rainwater. This has been the Liberty is Essential podcast. This is paid for and authorized by Liberty is Essential PAC. We thank you so much for taking the time to listen and watch. And please look for our next podcast, which will be coming out sometime in the next few days. Thank you again, and have a great day.